Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Tech Pulse on Economic Times. And today we have a very special guest with ourselves talking about the two raging words in India, AI and startups. I have with myself Ms. Preeti Lobana, VP and Country Manager, Google. Thank you so much, ma'am, for
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, first and foremost, now, Indian AI ecosystem, according to you and of course Google, there's a very strong belief that we are going from pilot to output very quickly. What are certain hurdles that you see right now that these startups are perhaps facing in going straight to the market?
Yeah. So as you said, the change that has happened with AI is that the time to go from ideation to prototype has reduced with all the AI tooling at our service. Now that the challenge that we see startups have is how they go from the prototype to and pilot stage to really successful scale up. And for us to be really, for any startup to be scaling successfully, they need to be able to get customers and access to markets. They need to have their product being adopted by enterprises. And that is where the true scale comes. And when I'm talking about scale, I'm talking about not just the market in India, but global scale. And the challenge that we see where a lot of these startups sort of flounder or face friction is that trust is a key currency, right? When you're talking about an AI-driven product, trust is very key, especially when you go outside of the country and you're pitching to big enterprises. They are going to want to better understand how are you mitigating the risks, who are you, how does your offering integrate into their sort of stack. And at that point in time, our startups and founders have that hurdle of gaining access to the right CXOs, even enterprises opening doors and giving them that hearing. And assuming they get there, like I said, the trust factor. So I think at that stage, that becomes a hurdle to truly scale.
Absolutely. Now, we also figured out today, and of course, with your announcements, that Google is perhaps going to be providing a full stack support to the startups and making sure that they will be giving some skilling programs as well. Now, in your view, which are those areas that will have the immediate impact with these with the support that Google is going to provide these startups?
So, we have a fairly broad set of offerings where we partner with the ecosystem. And I want to say here that for us, for Google in the 20 plus years in India, first of all, while Startup India is completing a decade, so is the Google for Startups, accelerator work. So we take pride in the fact that we've been there standing with India in a very consistent way. So if you think of the startup school and what we did in 2025 and what we are planning in 2026, it is about pivoting and working with founders in tier 2 and tier 3 cities as well. People who may not have a coding background, but can we take tools like our AI studio and people are skilled or trained to use natural language prompts, we can just go from prompt to prototype really quickly. So firstly, that skilling is about just enabling a much wider variety of Indians who will become founders and have their startups to create products using the AI tooling. Skilling in a more sophisticated sense for people who have been in this space is also about they're great with technology, but in the new AI world, how do we get them more familiar with the power of specific AI tools? And the work that we do with them in mentoring them and getting them familiar with those tools. For example, how do those AI tools help them to iterate on their offering? We all sort of launch the first prototype. We offer it to a few people. There are learnings. How well you succeed and get a slice of the market is how quickly you can iterate and adapt. And AI tooling is very critical to that. And we work with them in the skilling space. What we announced today, and then of course is about infrastructure.
Yeah.
I mean, compute in the AI-driven world is a constraint. So how do we make sure we are working with nominated and selected startups to have them get cloud credits, giving them that compute? But the most important thing, what we announced today, the market access program. Like I said, that, that is where a lot of startups face a challenge. So bringing the Google network or bringing the Google brand to play. And we're working with our partners like LTS or TIE Silicon Valley to make sure that we are taking some of these selected startups to have them work with CXOs in US, in other countries to help them gain that access. So We have wonderful examples that are very heartwarming. So take Nirame, which is in the field of breast cancer screening using different technology. Or when we have Core what is it that they brought to bear in terms of linguistics? When we look at multiple sort of startups in the field of health, agriculture, fintech, leveraging the linguistic capability of our models, we've seen people being able to get to idea to prototype to scaling much faster.
That is where my next question comes in, because you mentioned about inclusivity and the fact that that the Google support to these startups is way beyond just linguistic models and everything else that comes along with it, but perhaps also appreciating the diversity that we have here in our country. How do you feel that these two put together will help these startups be prepared on a global stage?
So I tell you, when we look at our models, especially all our multiple Gemma models, which are open source models. So we have very quickly built solid capability in Indian languages. And that linguistic diversity, not just in terms of sheer language, whether it's Uriya, whether it is Kannada versus Hindi or Punjabi, it is also about training our models to have better cultural context. For a large model which powers these specific apps and use cases, it will really work at scale if it respects linguistic diversity and the local cultural nuances. So I feel as we work with startups and they build on top of these models, the muscle that they flex about adapting to a complex country like ours, if their products can solve for India and its scale and its complexity, and I dare say our chaos at times, those products I can confidently say will work in any part of the world. You solve here with all the challenges we have, because remember, our models and products solve for linguistic diversity, cultural context, maybe networks which are not great in some places, also compute efficiency or value. When our founders work with us in all of these dimensions, they create products which work in any part of the world.
Oh, okay. Now, that is actually, of course, good news. But I wanted to bring perhaps my last question for today.
Yeah.
Is the fact that when you speak about AI, we talk about, of course, the efficiency that it brings along. But there is one very important word that is stuck with the word AI as well, which is privacy and data privacy in today's day and age. How is Google planning to train these startups to imbibe with the morality and, of course, making sure that the data is also secured from day one of the training that Google is providing them?
Yeah. So, it comes from our own ethos of that safety, privacy is foundational. We have to think about it from inception, from the start, and not as an add on or as an afterthought, because any product or offering works best if it's built in the design and the ideation process. So it's about how you build it in right from the start, and then how you have the right people, investment, the right processes that work around it. So when we mentor all our startups, or when we work with startups to accelerate, or when we are going further, through these kind of programs that we announced today, that is very much part of the conversation and the skilling that we have. And then we are also part of some of the broader industry level solutions where we share some of our AI frameworks in a broader sense, where startups can take that framework and look at it from their perspective and see how they can take to build it into their prototype and their solutions. So it's a constant endeavor. And it is very important, because for the ecosystem to grow and for adoption to happen, the trust from the users, governments, enterprises will only come in if there is privacy and safety and all of that. And so working at a very specific level on the skilling side, then with the broader sort of industry and mechanisms where we are sharing the broader frameworks that people can leverage, freely available.
Absolutely. So that's good news for all the startups that are planning to grow out of India. Google is standing with you. And stay tuned. I'm sure there will be more updates
Yes.
coming down this year.
Yes.
It's an exciting year for Google and Indian startup culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Preeti.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, of course, this interview series is not just finished because we are in the second segment of our interview with, of course, the Google team. With myself is Ms. Seema Rao, MD Global Strategic Partnerships, actually, with Google. Welcome.
Thank
to
you.
this interaction.
Thank you so much for having me.
First and foremost, we saw that Google is actively engaging in deepening its relationship with the startups in India.
Yeah.
From a Google lens, where do you see the priority is right now? Of course, AI, is it infrastructure, SaaS, consumer internet, or deep tech? Where do you see Google's complete focus right now in the Indian ecosystem?
Yeah. So I think our commitment and investment with the startup ecosystem has been for over 10 years, and we've partnered with them at every stage of their journey. And today we talk about partnering with the most difficult part, which is access, and how do we get them to really work with some of the best enterprises globally and really get pilots to production. As you think about like the AI stack in this AI era, our mission and the way we are now approaching and supporting startups is we have built a full stack approach to AI as well, right? From the best in class chips to infrastructure that is global scale to models. We've released over 400 models in the last 5 years. So models that are again multimodal, that cater to India's diversity. And then that is the infrastructure that we're offering Indian startups. And what we're seeing now, and again, this is again talks to the power of the Indian startup ecosystem, is we're seeing amazing applications and products and use cases being built on top of that infrastructure. And these startups are innovating in the world of AI, not just for India, but using India as a way to test and get product market fit, but then quickly take it global. And so the Indian startup ecosystem, they will continue to innovate on layers that are sitting above core infrastructure that players like ourselves are building, and the applications that they will build from an India standpoint will be everything from enterprise grade to catering to prosumers or creators or small businesses to mass consumer applications in the areas of health, education, agriculture, working right from farmers in tier 2, tier 3 to your next set of IIT students that are trying to crack that really hard exams, right? So we're seeing that across. And from as Google, we're super focused on building and continuing to deepen our investments and really building that infrastructure for AI.
Absolutely. Now, as you mentioned, investments and partnerships. So
Yeah.
both of those cannot be completed in a statement without evaluation as well. Now, I wanted to understand perhaps when it comes down to evaluating these startups that Google is, of course, empowering, what is particularly a metric that Google sees before partnering them up?
Yeah, so I think the way we look at the startup partnership and engagement is really how do we add value at every stage of their evolution? And truly, like, it is important to be a partner in that whole journey. So we're not saying that only talk to us when you come at a Series C or a Series D. We understand that a founder goes through a certain journey, and we have tailored our programs to meet their requirements as they go through this whole life cycle. So you think about our startup school, that's for really early stage founders. They could just have an idea, but how do you translate that idea into a prototype? So this year's edition was all about like prompt to prototype. So that's a mass offering, and we had over 30,000 registrations. So that is a program for very early stage. As a startup gets into more, you've raised your Series A, you've got a product that works, but you want to scale, you've got our Google for Startups Accelerator. And there it's all about like building more robust infrastructure, fine-tuning your product, setting an organization structure. And so you've got programs that cater to startups in that stage. Now we've just launched our market access program. These are for companies that are doing well at a certain scale, but want to like 10x their scale and get to new markets, new types of customers. So you've got programs that cater to various startups. And as we evaluate startups, for each of these programs, you've got different criteria because it has to match where the startup is and what the program offers. And as you get to a certain stage and partnership with Google, we also look at strategic investments as a lever to tighten our partnerships with these startups and provide them, again, capital to continue to invest, in areas that continue to further their growth.
Of course. And all of you understood that Google is, of course, pro when it comes down to adoption. I also wanted to understand the projection that is coming from Google in terms of the next 3 to 5 years of this journey that Indian ecosystem and Indian startups are going forward. Is there any particular category you see that Indian ecosystems will be leading globally in the next 5 years?
Yeah, we are very excited about what Indian ecosystem is building, not just on the consumer side, but also on the enterprise side. In our report, we talk about it. We talk about AI being like a $126 billion opportunity. And most of it, interestingly, is sitting with enterprise. Over $70 billion, we think, is the opportunity just sitting with enterprise AI. And we think this era, this decade, if we have seen sort of the growth and explosion on the consumer internet side, today with over 800 million internet users, you've got, various the latest models of quick commerce available only in India. Think about the quick commerce revolution. It's not worked in many markets. It's worked in India. If you think about our food delivery companies, they are of global scale. So we've gone through our consumer internet journey in a very different manner than what any other market has. And in the next decade or the next 3 to 5 years, I truly believe it's the era of enterprise and deep tech. And we will solve problems and we will identify areas that, again, many other markets and many other founders may not even think of. But sitting in India, we've got that unique advantage to think about. There's a company that we, again, just came across that's trying to, again, create water from atmospheric sort of moisture, right? So you're going to see all of these, be it solar on clean tech side, be it waste management, be it like agriculture. So in areas that, are inherently so challenging, but you're going to find innovation coming out of that. To pure like enterprise side, be it the new wave of, software, you call it, again, using our IT services backbone and expertise, we're going to create and see a whole new segment of service as a software, right? We're almost inverting the SaaS model to say we're going to productize workflows because we have understood them so well. And we're going to create now agents that can instantly sort of just automate everything that you do. And India is ripe to be doing that because we've mastered the process of, sort of business transformation and business automation. You apply the AI layer over it, you're just instantly creating hundreds of thousands of agents. And those agents can, again, do a multitude of things, right? So I think those are the areas that we will move towards. And it's going to be the era of enterprise, of deep innovation, and of going really deep into each of these sectors and breaking and making those breakthroughs.
The future is definitely exciting going forward.
Yeah.
Well, you have heard about today and you heard about tomorrow at the Tech Pulse episode today itself. I hope that you all liked it. Thank you so much, Seema, for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
To talk to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.